In this lesson, we're going to look at how to handle errors in Python. Error handling in Python is also called exception handling, and we handle those errors and exceptions using something called the try except. E-X-C-E-P-T, not A-C-C-E-P-T. Except, not accept. So the try except allows us to handle errors or exceptions so that the program doesn't crash and we're exited out to the operating system. Let's look at a very simple example. We're going to create a script. We'll call it accept.py. And what we're going to do is we're going to purposely generate an error dividing by 0, just so you can see what happens when we do that. So let's save the file. Now let's run the file. And you see we get a 0 division error. And we're back to the operating system. And that's something we don't want. We want our programs to handle errors gracefully and not just automatically crash. So the way we do that is using the try except. And here's how it works. You put the code you want to test, or the code that could possibly generate an error, inside the try part of the statement. Then in the except, we'll write whatever code we want to handle the error. Now in this case, because it's a very simple example, I'm not going to try to have the user re-enter a denominator. Notice they couldn't, because the denominator in this case is a literal. But in a real program, we'd have a much larger program, and in the except, we'd provide some way to go back so that the user could fix this error. We'd probably be in some kind of loop where the user's entering values for the numerator and the denominator. But you'll get the idea from this example. And then finally, to demonstrate that we stayed inside the program, we'll write finished at the end to show that the program went past the exception or the error. So let's clear the screen, run the script, and there you see how it works. We handled the exception, and it wrote out cannot divide by 0, and then the program continued on and wrote out finished. So let's try another example. In this case, what we want to do is handle a specific error. So what we're going to do in this case is we're going to have the user enter a number from the keyboard. And then we want to print it out. And we want to be able to handle the error or exception that the value the user enters is not actually a number. We can do this with value error that will specifically look to see if the value that's in number is a value or a numeric value or not. And if it's not, then we'll say not a number, please re-enter. And then we'll let the user enter it again. You'll recognize that I'm not putting the second input inside a try. But again, to do that, I'd have to make a little bit too involved of a program, but you get the idea. Again, we'd be in a loop where after we handled the exception, the user would be taken back to enter the number again. So let's save the file. Let's clear the screen and run the script. So if I enter the word 2 instead of the number 2, it says not a number, please re-enter, and then I can enter a number like so. I didn't have it print out, but you get the idea. So in a particular program, you can have multiple except statements for any one try, because you might have several different types of errors that you want to handle. For example, maybe later in this program, I also want to open a file. So what we'll do, we'll actually open one of our old Python programs from earlier. And we can handle this exception in another except statement below. This particular error is called an IO error. If you can't open a file, the file can't be found. And we'll just write print cannot open file. And we'll stop there. Now I need to change this to one that doesn't exist, so we're going to call it that. So what happens is, let me put a little spacing here. So what happens is every time an exception is raised, and that's the terminology that you use, the interpreter will look to see what it matches. So if we have a mistake here or an error here, then it's going to find that error, match it, and execute the code under value error. When we get to this error with trying to open a file, it will skip the value error and execute the code under IO error. And then we'll add a print finished just to wrap everything up. So let's give the code a try. Let's clear the screen. So first we'll enter a regular number, 123. Oh, I see what's wrong. I have a little error in the code. Let's fix that. Didn't handle that exception. Try it again. Clear the screen. Run the script. There we go. So the number part worked fine. Then it tried to open that file. It couldn't find it. And so it just wrote, cannot open file, and finished the script. That's a good enough overview of try except to get you through until we use it in some of the other lessons in the course. And then we'll look at how to more fully handle errors that crop up in our programs. And with that, that finishes our overview of the Python language. In our next set of lessons, the next chapter is going to talk about how we work with a database in Python. And we're going to start out by looking at an overview of the MySQL database, which is a very popular database that lots of Python programmers use. It's open source, it's free to obtain, and it's fairly easy to use. So in the next chapter, we'll be looking at an overview of MySQL.